Hello everybody and welcome back to Toitū2U Curator's Corner. Well, here we are back in lockdown and who knows how long it might be for this time. Some of our YouTube followers might be looking for a little diversion, and what better than some bite-sized Dunedin history from Toitū's photographic archives. In this series we can look at some photographic views that track the development of Dunedin from that rough and raw pioneer village of the 1850s through to the magnificent colonial city that had emerged by the latter part of the 19th century. Dunedin was by then New Zealand's leading centre, which is why we like to call it at Toitū New Zealand's first great city. By the way, I'm going to include the appropriate references in the photo caption so that if you wanted to get a copy of one of these images for yourself, you can just quote that number and contact our archives, and for a small fee we'll send you a digital copy for yourself. Details of the costs and the email address will be in the description below. Today's images relate to this view, looking northwards towards the Octagon along Princes Street, Dunedin's main street. The vantage point is roughly just outside today's Distinction Hotel. And here's our first image. We can date this with some confidence to mid-1861 by the construction work still ongoing with the stone building at the centre right, a store built during 1861 for Jones and Williamson. They were a firm of merchants that had been active in Dunedin since 1853. Their new store was completed in November 1861. More significant though is the cutting. The narrow opening that was cut through the line of Bell Hill at the end of 1858 to open up access to the Octagon in the north of Dunedin. You can see here just how narrow the gap still was to begin with, just 20 feet or slightly over 6 metres. But the creation of the cutting was nonetheless a watershed in Dunedin's development. Just a few years after this photograph was taken, the huge job of levelling Bell Hill to the right of Princes Street in this view got underway. It took over 13 years and was probably the biggest public works project ever in Dunedin history. All of that land to the right of the cutting was substantially lowered as a result. Dozens of existing buildings had to be demolished in the process, including Mrs. Amelia Muir's well-known boarding establishment, Bedford House, that you can see it right here in prime position atop the hill. The demolition debris was all dumped into the harbour to create the blocks of reclaimed land that Dunedin's commercial and industrial zones would be built on in the 1870s and 80s. But look here to the left and the steep climb up the muddy bank if you wanted to access the tinsmith services. This really takes us back to the original pioneer village, where a few drains were dug in the boggy Dunedin flat, some rough roads were scraped out, and then houses and shops like this were plonked down on the original topography. Just think what those steps would have been like in pouring rain. It doesn't take much imagination to see why they called the 1850s town Mud Eden. Now we're going to jump ahead to this image from a similar vantage point, but 40 years or so later. What a transformation. We now have a streetscape of magnificent stone buildings, proper footpaths, gas street lighting and a tramway system. Some of the buildings are genuine architectural masterpieces, like Louis Baldini's Grand Hotel from 1882 at left, and William Armson's Bank of New Zealand at right from 1883. Those two landmark buildings incidentally help us date the photo. Aren't we fortunate to still have them as part of the modern cityscape? But what a shame we've lost so many others, including the iconic Stock Exchange at right, built in 1865 but demolished in 1969. So I hope you enjoyed that glimpse of our city's past from the Toitū Photographic Archives. Subscribe to the channel and click on the bell icon if you want to enjoy more bite-sized Dunedin history in future episodes. But for now, I'll just say bye and be safe.